morning, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate you spending part of your holiday weekend here with us as we are wrapping up this series of messages we've been in for the last couple of weeks called The Journey. Now, if you're new or you just were out the last couple of weeks, what we're doing in this series is we are exploring the essential nature of a church family. While certainly our faith is built on our individual personal relationship with Jesus, we all have our own spiritual journey, but we were created to live out that journey with other believers. We are on a journey together. And so that's kind of what we've been doing in this series. And I've said, I think every week in this series, I've made this statement. Your spiritual growth is directly proportional to your level of engagement with a church family. And I use that word engagement because I'm talking about more than just attending a church. I'm talking about more than just participating in programs that the church offers. I'm talking about living out your faith together with a church family. And this is really interesting. Culturally, over the last 50, maybe 70 years, there's been a shift in how people view the church. And specifically, I'm talking about American evangelical Christians. That we've kind of changed how we view the church. We tend to see the church as a resource to help me with my spiritual growth. That the church is an organization that provides things that can help me in my individual walk with Jesus. And so it's kind of a little bit of a kind of consumer mindset, like I get this from the church. In fact, that's why, according to the latest Gallup poll, 42% of evangelical Christians say that they are a part of more than one church family. Because they like the preaching here, or the music here, or the children's program here, or the youth program here. And so it's kind of like going shopping at different grocery stores. You know, Aldi's got the best prices, but, you know, like new Lowe's has got good food like that. Like we've put that consumer mindset, that free market concept into practice in the church. But here's the thing. If you look at the 2,000-year history of the church, what you see is the church has always been communities of believers walking a journey together to live on mission and to live out their purposes together. That's always been the way God designed it. In fact, that's why the Apostle Paul, when he's writing a letter to the early church in the city of Rome, and Paul talks about how desperately he wants to get there with them, to be with them, right? To be in community, to hang out with them, to worship together. Listen to the reason he says why he looks forward to this. Romans 1:12. He says, because I want us to help each other with the faith we have. Your faith will help me, and my faith will help you. And so today we're going to wrap up this series by looking at what I think may be one of the best ways that we can help each other grow in our faith and at the same time have a huge impact in the lives of people outside the church, in our community and around the world. And I'm talking, of course, about serving. Serving better together. Because we serve God by serving others. Jesus was crystal clear about this, that following Him is a call to service. Right? Jesus said, even I, the Son of Man, did not come to be served, but to serve others and give my life as a ransom for many. It was also Jesus who said, the greatest commandment is, yes, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. But equal to it is to love your neighbor as yourself. And when he's talking about love, he's not talking about a feeling. He's not talking about an emotion. He's talking about a verb. Love, putting the needs of others ahead of my own. And so to help us collectively take a next step in serving others better together, here's what I want to do. For a few minutes, I want to look at some specific instructions that Jesus gave to his followers the first time he sent them out to serve without him going with them. So if you have a Bible or a Bible app, we're in the Gospel of Luke. That's in the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke. Third book in the New Testament. Much easier to find than last week, 1 Kings. So if you got a Bible or a Bible app, click there. We're in chapter 10. If you don't have any of those things, you can actually find notes for today's sermon on the CedarCreekChurch app or even on our website. So while you're finding Luke chapter 10, let me give you just a little backstory. Okay? This event takes place in the latter years of Jesus' ministry on earth. Jesus physically ministered on earth for about 3.5 years. And so at this point, about 2.5, maybe close to 3 years in, towards the end, Jesus has gathered a pretty decent size of consistent followers, right? In addition to the apostles, the ones that we know, Peter and John and Matthew and the two Jameses, right? There were also others, men and women, 60, maybe 70 of them. Some we know the names of, some we don't. But Jesus had a pretty good little group of followers. And so he's about to send them out to minister and serve in villages that he will eventually go to in the future. Now, over this 2.5 years, this group of followers, they've been traveling with Jesus. They've been watching Jesus minister and serve in villages and towns. That's what they've been doing. They've watched Jesus heal the sick, right? They've watched him feed the hungry. They've seen him have compassion on people who were hurting and struggling. And they've seen him proclaim the good news of the gospel, that the kingdom of God is here. They've watched him do that. Now it's their turn to do what they've seen Jesus do. And right before he sends them out, he gives them some instructions that I think are speaking to us today as well. And we find 4 keys to serving better together. So let's jump in. Number 1, Jesus says the first thing we got to do to serve better together is we got to partner with others. Partner with others. While yes, you can serve others by yourself, you're much more effective and much more impactful when you serve with others. Notice the first thing Jesus does. Verse 1 it says, after this, the Lord appointed 72 others and sent them out 2 by 2 ahead of him to every town and place where he was about to go. So he sent them out in pairs, right? 2-person team, 2 people per village. Now, think about this. From an efficiency standpoint, Jesus just reduced his reach by half. Instead of being able to reach 72 villages, he now has limited it to just 36. Why would Jesus do that? Because Jesus knew what he would lose in scope would be more than made up for in impact. Because Jesus understood a principle that had been articulated by Solomon thousands of years before, the wisest man who ever lived. Notice what Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes. 2 are better than 1. Why? Because they have a good return for their labor. That phrase, good return, literally means more than twice as much, right? It's something we call today synergy. And synergy is this principle that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In other words, synergy means 2 plus 2, 1 plus 1. I'll get my math right in a minute. I struggle with math. 1 plus 1 is greater than 2. 2 working together can get more than the 1 working as an individual, right? That is why, by the way, ancient farmers invented the yoke. You know what I'm talking about? That wooden beam that links 2 working animals together, because they knew that 2 ox pulling together can pull a greater weight than the 2 individual oxes, right? If 1 ox can pull 1,000 pounds, Two oxes pulling together can pull more than 2,000 pounds. That is synergy, and that's what Jesus understood. In fact, that principle is the basis for two strategic decisions we have made at Cedar Creek Church when it comes to serving others. One is that we serve in teams. If you sign up to be a part of one of the ministries here at Cedar Creek, you will not be out there on your own. There are no Lone Ranger solo service. You serve as a part of a team, whether it's our greeting team or the worship team or the production team or our Kids Creek team. You always serve as a part of a team. And when we serve outside the walls of the church, when we serve the needs of people in our community, we encourage you to do that with others as part of a team, to serve with your home group or with your family. Now, I'm not saying that you can't serve people's needs when you're by yourself. I'm not saying next week when you're walking through the parking lot of Walmart and you see somebody who has a need, you're like, I'd love to help, but Pastor Phillips said I got to be in a part of a team. No, you can serve by yourself. You'll just serve more effectively, consistently, long-term when you serve with others. The second strategic decision that we've made at Cedar Creek is the value of partnerships. To partner with people and organizations that are already on the ground doing great work in our community and around the world. See, there's no need for us as a church family to try to come up with a ministry to meet every need we see in our community. Right? Homelessness, obviously an increasing issue in our community, globally, but especially here in our community. We're seeing it. All of us are seeing it. But there's no need for us to try to come up with our own ministry to the homeless. We don't have a homeless ministry, but you know what we do? We partner with organizations like ACTS and Christian Ministry Centers up at the Ridge. And we partner with organizations like Salvation Army who are doing great work. We come alongside. Two are better than one. In fact, that is why I am so excited about 2 weeks from today. In fact, mark your calendar, Sunday, September 15th, 2 weeks from today, we're going to have some of our local community partners here on our campuses, here at Banks Mill and up at the Ridge on that Sunday. And it's going to be an opportunity not just for you to meet some of the partners and see what they do, but they're coming with sign-up sheets. They got projects, they've got work days and things that they need to get done. And you're going to have an opportunity to sign up and serve with a partner as part of a team because we serve better together. Better together is not just a slogan we've stuck on t-shirts. It is a core value of who we are and how we operate as a church. We serve better when we partner with others. Number two, Jesus says we serve better when we recognize our dependence on God. The impact of our service is not based on our talents, our skills, or the resources we have as a church. It is based on God's presence and God's power moving and working in and through us. Yes, you have gifts. Yes, you have resources. Yes, you have abilities. Yes, you have experiences in your life. And God gave you those to help you serve others effectively. You've been uniquely shaped as an individual to serve others. But when you serve others, never forget, it's not about what you are doing for them. It is about what you are allowing God to do in and through you. Now this is interesting. Before Jesus sends out this group of 72 people in 36 teams, he kind of helps paint a word picture of what they're going to be facing, what it's going to be like. And basically Jesus said there's going to be a whole lot of people with a whole lot of needs. In fact, he said it's going to be like a giant field that's full of wheat, that's ready for harvest. And there's not going to be near enough of you or near enough time to get it done. Notice verse 2. Jesus said to them, look, guys, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Listen, the needs of the people around you are always going to be greater than the resources you have. Serving God by serving others is always going to cause you to end up in over your head. That's by God's design. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You've reached out to help somebody in a crisis and you see the surface issue, but as soon as you deal with that, you start seeing below the iceberg underneath, and there's this need and this need. It's kind of like remodeling an old house. Anybody ever tried to update an old house? Have you ever noticed how soon as you fix one thing, it reveals like 10 other things that have to be fixed? Like you change out the socket and you realize you got to change out all the pipes, right? That's how people's lives are. That's how you're going to be, in over your head. And here's the thing. You can get frustrated and give up and go, why bother? It's never going to get any better. Or you can just recognize this is a God-sized thing and just beg God to do more than you could ever do yourself. And I love how practical Jesus is, because he doesn't just tell them, pray and depend on God. He literally forces them to depend on God. Notice verses 3 and 4. Jesus said, all right, go. I'm sending you out like lambs among wolves. Oh, wow, thank you. And then look at what he says. But don't take a purse or a bag or sandals. What does he mean? He's saying don't take any extra money. Don't take any extra clothes. Don't even take an extra pair of shoes. Just go just like you are with what you've got. Now remember, they're going to be traveling for days. They're going to spend weeks trying to meet needs of hurting people in strange villages, surrounded by people they do not do. When I look at that, that seems like poor planning to me. You're sending them out expecting them to fail. Why would Jesus give them these instructions? Well, two reasons. One, obviously, so that they would depend on God. So they'd walk into that village going, dear Lord, if you don't show up, nothing's going to happen here. This is bigger than us. But there's a second reason. I think Jesus wants them and us as well to understand the importance of traveling light to live on mission. Extra baggage just gets in the way. I remember the first time I ever went with one of our global outreach teams here at Cedar Creek. We were going to Romania to teach home group leader training to Romanian pastors and Romanian seminary students. Now, I'd never been overseas. At that point in my life, I'd barely been out of South Carolina. I've lived my whole life here. Not a big traveler. I think I'd flown twice on airplanes in my whole life. And I'm going to this country I know nothing about. I don't know what the weather's going to be. So my philosophy was take everything, because you never know what you're going to need, right? So, I got this giant, humongous suitcase. Back then you could carry 70 pounds. Now it's only 50. So that sucker was packed with 70 pounds of a little bit of everything. Then I had a carry-on piece, and then I had a huge backpack stuff. I had also, I wish you could have seen me trying to get through the airport, right, and get through customs with all that junk. And then, I don't know if you've ever been in a former communist country, but the apartment buildings in these places, particularly the elevators in these places, not like American elevators. They're like a phone booth. And I got all this luggage, and the people we're staying with, 6th floor. And I can't take anything up by the luggage. And here I am dragging. I had to take 2 trips up and down. By the time I got all my stuff there, I was too exhausted to help or serve or do anything. And I think for some of us, that's how we're going through life. We got all this stuff. We've run after the toys and the stuff and the material possessions, and we're trying to get through life carrying all this baggage. Have you noticed the number of storage facilities that are springing up all over our community, right? These little lockable storage warehouses, they're everywhere. There's more of them than there are car washes and mattress stores, and they're full. And that's on top of full garages and full outbuildings in the house. And we're going through life with all of this stuff. And the problem isn't the stuff we have. The problem is the stuff has us. Because I don't know if you've figured this out or not. Stuff requires maintenance. Stuff takes time and energy to have in our lives. Jesus said, don't take any extra baggage. Now, for some of us, It's not the material possessions that are our baggage. For some of us, we are dragging around the baggage of our past, the baggage of our pain, the baggage of our brokenness and struggles. Now think about Paul's words in Hebrews, where he says to run the race, we've got to strip off everything that hinders us, especially the sin that so easily entangles us, so we can run the race. That's why you've heard me say so many times, the pain and baggage of your past is not an impedance to you serving Jesus. In fact, it is often the very way Jesus wants to use you to serve and help others. You've heard me say often, your greatest ministry will probably come out of your deepest pain and your greatest failure. And so this morning, I want you to hear the story of an amazing lady who has had just that experience. Check it out.
So I'm Penny Beeson. I've been a member of Cedar Creek kind of off and on. When I first started, it was probably back in 2007-ish or so. 2020 is when I lost my son to suicide. It was a very hard time in my life. So about 3 weeks after my son died, I was actually at the point where I wanted to die myself. And it was one morning when I just woke up with that horrible feeling in my gut that I'd still lost my son. It was like, you go to bed to get away from it, to sleep. You think about, well, I'll just sleep and not think about Lucas. But then I woke up thinking, oh my word, he's still gone, and I just want to go too. And that's when I had the 3 words, and that was, God help me. And at that point, he did. Did it make it all go away? No. But it made it where I could at least see the next hour of the day. I went to Grief Share 3 times prior to actually being approached about leading it. And the first time they asked me to lead it, I was like, no, I'm not equipped. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. And then I prayed on it, and a semester went by, 6 months went by, and they asked me again. And I started praying about it, and I was like, okay, God, I guess this is what you need me to do. So to reach others and to help other people. And so I decided to do it. And it actually in itself was the best blessing I've ever seen, I've ever gotten, was because I was learning more through leading it than I was, I think, when I went through the class, as a participant. Do I have bad days? Absolutely. I mean, I wake up sometimes and I don't want to get out of bed, But I know that I'm here for a purpose. God put me here for a reason. And I feel like helping others has been more of, it's better for me. It helps me more than I think it helps them. But then to help them too, it makes me feel good. There's no past too ugly for God, because, I mean, he sat with sinners. He ate with sinners, and you always are welcome back to God. I mean, he's gonna help you through. He's gonna be your strength. I mean, every day that's who gets me out of bed in the morning and keeps me going is him.
The more desperately dependent you are on Jesus, the more impactful your service will be to the people around you. Number 3, the third thing Jesus says is we have to ruthlessly remove distractions. Ruthlessly remove distractions. Why? Because one of the biggest barriers to serving others is not selfishness. We're not a bunch of selfish, self-absorbed, self-centered people, but we are people who are so easily distracted in our lives. And as technology continues to advance, and as anything and everything comes at us faster from a million different angles, it's as if we are in the midst of a pandemic of ADHD. We're all just like squirrel, it's all coming at us at breakneck speed. And I think about that reality because I have it in my life, and I'm pretty sure you're experiencing it yours. And I think about that, And I think about Paul's words in Philippians 3, where Paul says, "This one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead, I press on to win the goal that Christ Jesus has called me heavenward." See, to serve others, you got to know the goal. And you got to be willing to eliminate anything and everything that gets in the way of that goal. You know, as strange as Jesus' instructions were to them not to take any extra stuff, what Jesus tells them next is even more strange. Look at the end of verse 4. Jesus said, "And do not greet anyone on the road." Now think about it. They're going to have to travel to these villages, maybe a day or two. I don't know how far they are. They're going to be traveling, and Jesus says, while you're traveling to this village, if you pass by anybody, don't greet them. Ignore them. Just keep moving. And I'm like, that seems kind of rude, right? For people who are supposed to be on a mission to love and serve others, why would Jesus say, don't greet anyone on the road? Well, to understand this instruction, you got to understand the cultural context going on here. Because when we think greeting someone on the road, it's like 20 seconds. Hey, what's up, man? Hey, nice to meet you. Good. Doing well? I'm fine. You're good. 20, 30 seconds. But in first century Eastern culture, in fact, still today in Eastern culture, a greeting was not a 30-second, hey, check in, how you doing? It usually involved being invited into someone's home, sharing a meal together. So it's going to be a 4 or 5 hour event, maybe even an overnight event. Jesus' point to them is the mission is in the village, not the road. Stay focused on the task that you've been called to and the people and place that I have sent you to. Stay focused. Stay faithful. Did you know one of the leading indicators of the impact of someone's life of service is the faithfulness of the person who's doing the serving? When I think about faithfully serving as a part of the Cedar Creek Church family, I think of many, but one gentleman in particular. He's in his 70s now, and he has faithfully served as an elementary small group leader in our Kids Creek ministry for over 20 years. In fact, many of the young adult leaders and staff members and people you see serving here at Cedar Creek were led by this gentleman when they were in first or second grade. And he's still serving faithfully today. He was over there leading kids at the 9 o'clock service this morning. And I'm sure in those 20 plus years, there have been days when he has been discouraged. There have been days when he has had plenty of reason to be distracted. Things in his life, things with his family, things with his health. And yet, he just keeps showing up. Week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. What's distracting you? What's getting in your way? What is keeping you from living out the call of Jesus to be on mission in the villages of your world? And finally, number 4, and then we're done. Fourth thing Jesus says we got to do to serve better together is we got to be intentionally relational. Intentionally relational. Why? Because serving well is not just about meeting the surface needs of the people around us. It is about connecting relationally with hurting and broken people around us to bring about real and lasting change in their life. Now notice what Jesus tells his followers to do once they get to the village. Once they get in the village, look, verse 7. Don't move around from home to home. Stay in one place, eating and drinking what they provide. And look at this. Don't hesitate to accept hospitality. What's he saying? Be intentionally relational. Now you'd think if they're going to be in this village for a couple of weeks, to really have more influence, it would have been better spend a night or two at this house, get to know those people, spend a night or two over here, get to know, impact several people, move around to different houses. Jesus said, no, stay in one place with one family in one house. Why? So you can truly connect and pour into them, because you're leaving the village at some point. This village is where they live. By pouring relationally into them, they can then be used by God to continue to impact their village long after you're gone. And by the way, that principle is the basis for global outreach at Cedar Creek Church. We don't just randomly send teams of people overseas where there are needs. We send them to specific places where there's either a church family or long-term global workers, people that are on the ground 24/7, 365. Because we don't really help people by going in and fixing up, drill a well or build a bathroom, fix up the house and go, all right, good luck to you. No, that might meet a temporary need, but that doesn't get them to Jesus. That doesn't truly help the underlying struggles in their lives, right? You guys know we drill tons of clean water wells. Big emphasis for us. We collect an offering in December, a clean water offering, our Christmas offering for that specific purpose. We've dug dozens and dozens of wells, provide clean, safe drinking water. But understand this, every one of those wells has been drilled and is connected to either a church in that village or a ministry organization or somebody who's going to be on the ground. Why? Because we want to give them more than just clean water to drink. We want to allow them to experience the living water of Jesus Christ. And that happens through long-term relationships. Second thing, notice this about Jesus' instructions. Not just to invest relationally, stay with that one family the whole time, but he also says you got to recognize the value and dignity of the people you're serving. Because Jesus said, look, let them help you. Don't be afraid to accept their hospitality. Take what they serve you. See, too many times as Christians and as a church, we go in to help hurting people with a sense of arrogance. We're from the church, we're the Christians, we've got it all together. Let us tell you, you just sit there and let us fix all your problems. No, that ain't serving like Jesus. That's just arrogantly thinking we know better, right? Jesus says, no. Partner with them, link arms with them, right? You're not trying to create dependence on you. That doesn't help people. If you don't believe that, look at the federal government. They've been doing that for 70 years, creating, well, just sit down and let us give you barely what you need to get by. No, Jesus is a call to freedom to all of us, wherever you're born, and everybody is a part of it. Our call is to go into the village, link arms with hurting people, and let's just stumble to Jesus together. That is the journey we are called to. And I love how Paul puts it. 1 Corinthians 9. Paul says, to the weak I became weak, to win the weak. And I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. In other words, Paul said, I'm just meeting people where they are to be used by God to get them to where they need to be. But be careful here. This is not a bait and switch. This is not we go in to make people think we're there to help them, to serve their needs. But when secretly we just want to get them in our church so we'll have a bigger church. Or we just want to get another notch on our soul-winning belt for Jesus. No. It's about building relational bridges with lost people that they can walk across them to find their way back to God. And unfortunately, church and brothers and sisters in Christ, we've gotten a whole lot better at building walls than building bridges. And we're so busy trying to make sure we define ourselves against the culture around us that we've forgotten that Jesus calls us to engage the culture, to bring hope and light to hurting people. In fact, studies show that within 7 years of somebody becoming a Christ follower and becoming a part of a church family, within 7 years, they no longer have a single significant relationship with an unchurched or lost person. In 7 short years, we get into our own little, behind our own little walls. And we say, yeah, but Philip, we're out serving the lost. No, you're not if you're not connecting with the lost. If you're not inviting them into your home or accepting an invitation to be in their home, because that's what Jesus called us to. Do you have that? Do you have a significant relationship with a lost, unchurched person in your life right now? I'm not talking about some special project you're trying to win for Jesus. I'm just talking about a lost person that you care about, that you're just trying to connect with so that they can see Jesus in you. If you don't have it, where are you going to get it? Can I tell you something? There's a village where you work. There's a village in the bleachers at your kid's ball game. There's a village in the gym where you go and work out every day. You might want to take those earbuds out and see what's happening in that village. God has intentionally placed you in the places you are for you to be intentional about connecting relationally with the people around you. That is how we serve better together. And so as I close, not just this message, but as we close this whole journey series, can I just ask you something? What is one step you need to take to engage a little more with the family of God here? If this is your church home, what would a step of engagement look like? Maybe it's serving somewhere together. Maybe it's connecting with a home group. Maybe it's giving financially like we talked about, investing in the mission and vision. Maybe it's to get serious about doing more than just being a customer and consumer of Cedar Creek, and be sold out to the mission and vision that God has given this church. Not just me, not the staff, not the home group leaders. Every one of us have been called to take a next step to live on mission for the King of Kings, who brings hope in a time in our community and our nation that maybe hope has never been more needed. Would you pray with me? Listen, I don't know what that is for you. Some of you are incredibly engaged. You're serving, you're giving, you're connected, you're living on purpose. Some of you are halfway in, halfway out. Some of you are out on the outer edge. All of that's okay. Wherever you are today, I believe God is speaking clearly to every one of us to be willing to take that next step of a deeper engagement with the body of Christ so that we can go deeper into the heart of Christ in our lives. Jesus, pour out your Spirit on your people. Move us to go deeper with you. It's in your name I pray. Amen.